Father God, we pause and we thank you for today, for watching over us, protecting us. We're thankful for the privilege and opportunity to serve our community. And we pray you grant us wisdom, direction as we make decisions for the county. Be with those that wear badge and uniform. Keep us safe. Watch over them. Care for each one. Be with those that are old in age, those who have heartaches, and heal and restore would be your will. So I did this prayer in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes were sent via email. And if there aren't any moves, adds, or changes to that, I would accept a motion to approve.
So moved. Second that.
3-0. We had payroll totaling $260,768.81 and claims totaling $363,662.01. If there aren't any changes or modifications, accept the motion.
Motion to accept the financials. Seconded.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
3-0. Sheriff. Floor is yours.
Good evening. As of a little bit ago, our inmate population is 83. 32 of those are pretrial circuit, 25 pretrial superior, 17 F6, and 1 DOC. So that's been helpful, getting our numbers down just a little bit there. Just a few updates. We had our annual fire inspection this morning, so everything in lieu of being under construction went fairly well in that retrospect. As far as construction update, we're moving along. If our public parking lot is almost complete, that's in, done, striped. The only thing left they have to do is put up the light poles, and that'll be tomorrow. And then the public parking lot is completed. They've been working since early this morning on the last of our largest air handlers for the west side of the jail. That's completely out. They're working multiple crews into the evening, so that should be done by tomorrow and completed. Yep, that was the next thing on the list. The fire dampers in the new addition is completed. Those are all in. Corson's doing some of their fire hookup stuff. They still have all the other fire dampers to do within the existing jail that was brought before you last time, but they're all in, and those the main focus is getting them into the new part first. They did have the state fire inspector out last week to get some preliminary looks at everything there. Nothing major to be done there. We're still hoping to get into the new section, hopefully early December. So other than that, everything's kind of moving along. We actually got one portion of our storage area back. It's completed, so we're putting racks up in there and starting to get some of our storage containers emptied hopefully later this week. And then they'll be back into the what we call the C area, which is where the old visitation is. They'll start picking up there with fire dampers and getting that section completed as well. So, and they've already started doing painting in the corridor, which was one of those additional projects on the list that we got approved. So they're already starting to work on getting the painting and done throughout there. So. Other than that, it's a lot of crews out there right now, but they're doing a panel electric switchover tomorrow. So we'll hopefully that goes nice and smooth. None of the admin will be in with it being election day tomorrow. So hopefully that goes smooth, and because that would have affected a lot of areas up in the administrative area. So it's kind of good timing to be able to do it tomorrow. Other than that, I don't have anything else, other than dealing with chickens and other things in the community. It's been a busy time lately, so, yeah.
Hey, is it C of O, is that a state or a city certificate of occupancy to get that approved in December, do you know?
Well, we have to go through the state fire marshal has to approve it, and then we also have to have the jail inspector back out. So he'll come out and get that, and once we get blessings from both of them, then we should be able to get our occupancy back.
No delays there, holidays and all that?
I don't believe so. And then we've been working with the new inspector for the city. So he works in conjunction. He's been out there as well when the state fire marshal's been out there. So some of these areas of, when he did his preliminary walkthrough, there was a few things and sealing up some conduit through some of the firewalls and those type of things. We don't have to keep calling the state fire marshal out. The city inspector can come out and give his blessing on those things, which saves us because there's only a couple state inspectors. So to get them out multiple times is, when they're doing annual inspections of all the other jails. So that kind of really helps us. And he even said it right there, as long as he's okay with the fixes that are needed, then he's totally okay with it, so. But. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Highway. Hey, Sean.
Sean?
Sorry I missed last meeting. I wasn't feeling too well, but I watched it today. Sounded like Nate did a good job with putting everything I needed in there, but here to talk about something again today. This week, 200 West Road conversion is set I missed a section there, but 200 West is complete and ready to chip for next spring. We still have some ditch work to do to get the drainage lined up. A couple poles need moved, and we'll address that next year in the spring. They had a pole shortage. We started on 700 North, which is the second section of the road conversion this year. We have got it widened, and with this time of the year, we kind of lose some manpower, so vacations are getting used up. So we're working on that one, hoping to have that in the same place, ready to chip for next year. Our mowing is about complete. We're going to get the mowers put away for the winter, get them under roof. 4-H Park helps us out with that. We really appreciate it until we can get our new facility and a larger facility. With the increased traffic from the harvest season, looking at going out later this week and addressing all the gravel roads, grading them and taking care of any soft spots that are needed. There's some washboarding out there. We've had some complaints. I've been waiting till about the end of this week, though, to try to make a jump on it, so most of it will be done, and then we can hit it again before winter comes. We received our new sign truck that you let us get, so we didn't have to wait another year for it, so it came in, everything's working great. I'm not real happy that it had to be white, and all our other trucks are red, but we have a white truck in our fleet now. But it's still marked with the Wells County logo on the side, so we still have the same logo, truck number, and it is working well. I am going to ask for another extension for Russell Alford. He is still in recovery. He's working well, and his hopes are to return by the end of the year. His wife's aren't the same, but he's working hard to get back in, and I was hoping that we could extend his medical leave some more.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm going to...
Aye.
3-0.
I'm going to skip past here. I'm going to go down to the highway garage update first. So I went and visited today and spoke with Mike Swan yesterday. I talked to a couple contractors about the power wash system and the waste oil burner. As the building site goes, the salt storage footers have been poured. They are looking to do the cold storage footers tomorrow. And they have put in several of the storm drains. So there is progress moving. I'm kind of taking pictures and recording along the way. I can't be there 100% of the time, but I know it looks like everybody's moving, doing a good job. I talk to Connor regularly. And Mike Swan, with our meeting, not yesterday, I apologize, it was last week, we are looking into getting the low voltage wiring going so we can merge them in with the build. There's some discussion about it, so I don't have the answers quite yet, but as we're discussing it, I just want to let you know that's going. And then the oil storage and transfer system, we're going to get that rolling. That way, we can get them out of the way and add them into the build. That way, there's no problems from one part of the build to the second. I don't want any extra holes drilled in that don't need to be there. I'd rather everybody have a blueprint on plan, everything in the proper place. So we're starting them early. I was going to wait till the first of the year to start procuring any other items that we need just for storage purposes. And hopefully we don't have a price increase at the first of the year, and then transferring money, I thought it'd be easier that way. You have any questions about the updates? No?
Good. Nice to see it actually going.
Yeah, I like to see something different every day out there, actually, so.
I was out earlier this morning and I see him doing, so.
Next topic would be, we brought up 2 meetings ago, we were talking about the driveway permits. And I know you guys wanted to think about it. Mike, I believe last meeting, did you receive the quantity of permits that were sought after over the last couple of years?
I think that, if I recall right, it was tough to really pin that down, wasn't it?
We had kind of what records we had that we've been putting together recently of the driveways and of some of the road cuts that we've been, because we don't have the road cut permits historically. That's something we had Abby put together when she was with us for the summer. So that was kind of our best fit for the recent records for that. But we don't have anything obviously on overweight or oversized loads since we do not track that.
I don't have the paperwork with me of what we proposed a month ago, but as what it was looking like was a $50 permit fee. It's not trying to make money, it's just trying to cover the money that we're expensed with. So the biggest part is the manpower. Whenever they need something or they need it when they need it, and I have the guys off doing another job, it's hard to afford the manpower to send out to do something for somebody else. So, and then the money, the cost that goes with it, when you start adding up the stone, the fuel, the man hours, it takes out of our budget, out of the taxpayers' budget, which then it's less money we get to spend all over the county. It's just put in one area for a couple people or one person, and I just think it'd be wise if somehow we could recoup that money. Even if we continue to do the same thing, would be fine. We can work that out, but we gotta recoup the money.
What does it cost us on average? You said that, is it that $50 or?
No, well, the filter, the topsoil, the filter, we get for free. We pull it out of ditches when we replace pipes. We have a large supply of it, so we can get rid of that, yes.
So spending fuel and labor.
It's the fuel, labor, trucking, manpower, yeah.
Well, the scheduling thing, can't that be overcome by, we don't do it instantly? You can't call that morning and have us do it, it's got to go on a schedule?
Right.
I have put it off for a couple days, but the demand is from a couple callers is they say, I'm going to do this tomorrow. Can I have this by 11? So I'm just,
I think we should revisit that and bring it up at the next meeting and just go through with a fine tooth comb and what makes sense, what doesn't. I like the idea that what you said, if you can wait, there's a no fee or whatever. But if you want it now, then you pay extra or something too, so.
I would also like to put a stipulation on cutting any paved road then too. So if we get into the latter part of the year where I don't have the materials to seal that road back up and it needs to be left in just a gravel, we have to have a cutoff date of when they can actually cut a paved road, because then I'm maintaining that section all winter long.
Cut or repair, like the one on 250 down off from the golf course.
They paved it.
Did they pave it?
Yeah.
Because that thing was like hitting not a speed bump, it was like hitting the Grand Canyon.
Quite often, and every time I went to address it, I would go check it again a day or two later, and they did maintain it fairly well. But, I mean, I'm sure you hit it in some bad points, I did too, but it wasn't too long after they maintained it. But with that amount of traffic going across a gravel strip from a road cut, it goes bad quick.
I can support Blake's idea of, and I don't want to kick it down the road any longer, but I think what needs to be in the proposal that comes back to us is, here's a schedule So you can call in and maybe here's the days we do it, or here's the time we need in advance to get it done. But I can't call anybody right now, supply chains, and say I need it tomorrow. It's just not realistic of how you do business, and you're running a business. So come back to us with one that says, here's what's a good time frame for me. We'll publish that. If you want a culvert or whatever, it has to hit this time frame. You need to call in advance. And maybe that reduces the cost, but I think we need to recoup some of those costs on the gravel, on the diesel. I mean, all that stuff's going up. It's not getting any cheaper. It is coming out of the budget, and we're spreading that across all taxpayers.
Right.
And there's only certain taxpayers that are using it. So let's be fair and equitable, but let's make sure that it's on a schedule, and here's the cost. We're not going to gouge you for them. We're not going to charge you anymore, but you got to cover the cost for that. Because
think
gravel's not free, concrete's not
Right.
free, asphalt's not free.
The permitting would definitely create the opportunity for you to schedule this at a time when it's going to be more convenient, right? I mean, because they're going to,
Not necessarily.
whatever, and then you can decide when you want to do that.
That seems to come good with driveways, but when you're going into tiling, or if you're putting a pipe underneath the road to push a manure hose through, they just do it when they have time, and I don't always have the time, but I've went with past practice, and I've always made it work somehow. But I take away from what we're doing to make that happen, and is why we're having a discussion today.
But we're saying, like, we're making them schedule that is what we need to do, and
Well, I also have a permit that,
permit will do it.
I also have a permit in there that it got done, and then they come and said, here, you need to fix this, and nobody signed it, they didn't apply for it, they put it in, so I actually just filed it without a signature. It was never approved, but the road's been cut.
Are we cutting paved roads?
We,
Are they cutting paved roads?
and, yeah, paved and gravel, they do both.
There's no notice, there's no regulation for the city? that
There,
can-
well, there is a driveway permit that most of them do fill out, and they do call, and they're cordial when they talk, but they just say, I want to do it now, and they do work with you a couple days. I'm not saying they just want to do it, but there is a contractor out there that just went ahead and cut the road, did his work, and then told us it was done.
I can add in that, I've been reading through different ordinances in different counties, and Adams Counties basically says that if you go out and you do it yourself and you don't have the permit or whatever, they don't do a fee necessarily or a penalty. They say if we have to go out and fix it, then you're gonna pay market rate, whatever that is, for us to have to take care. Like you were telling me before, that somebody cut into a paved roadway, it sounds like, and it's too late in the year to be able to cover that up, and so they're gonna be driving over it and get their cars chipped up now.
Liable then.
And what you would be able to do if the commissioners are okay with that, and we can think about this as well over the next 2 weeks, is once that's certified by you and goes to the auditor, it can act as a lien on the property. If they're not, so it incentivizes them to work with you rather than against you or behind your back. And you need to, you're allowed to then structure out how you want to spend your time, how you think that would work best for you. Just something to think about.
It's no different building a house, right? Whether you're in the county or the city, you got to pull a permit. If you don't pull a permit, there's a penalty, or we'll lock it down that you can't build. Shouldn't that be the same for a contractor that's cutting a road?
I would think so. I mean, you're bringing a request from VTF shortly, like, you're up next. So they want to con 700?
700, yep.
So they want, and that's our
They're making.
old NDOT road. So, and at least they're requesting, but they have to have some sort of teeth. If that thing damages cars or whatever, they got to be on.
What kind of contractor are you talking about? A piping contractor, tiling contractor?
Anybody.
So, I mean, they have to be businesses in town. Let's figure out what the regulations are, or what we're gonna put around it, and then send a letter out to them and saying, starting this day, these things are going in place. If you cut it, we do like Colin said, and get the treasurer or the auditor to put something in place. I mean, you can't continue just to chase them.
And I need to know if that $50 is enough, or if you've done a little more thought on that, and if it needs to be more, let us know.
At this day and age, it's more. I mean, a $250 for a truckload of stone is more like $400 if you go and purchase it. I was just offsetting the cost slightly to make it a little more, or not as doesn't hurt us as bad.
Used to be delivered for $225, is now $375.
Yep.
The costs are the costs, and we can be transparent about them. It could even say in there that we'll give you the ticket.
Yeah.
Here's the ticket, and so we'll just charge you what it is, but I don't know if there's any discounts. I mean, if there's discounts, line me up, I need gravel.
Right, we shouldn't.
I'll take some.
Not every taxpayer should have to absorb that, so I think that we need a realistic average cost to that.
In Adams, if I can just add, in Adams County, I was looking at their numbers, $320 for Stone Road, this is new tile, and $520 for chip and seal, so.
Well, what you gave us had comparables on there, so.
Yeah, it was full.
They're the comparables
We'll
and
take a look
actual
at it.
costs.
I was actually choosing the lowest, really, pretty much. Well, Huntington's like 15 for a driveway, but other than that, it was the lowest, which would be comparable to, it was the lowest out of every county of each category.
But that shouldn't have to come out of your budget like it does, so we'll,
Right.
So your costs are making the cost, nothing more. We don't want to gouge people, but making the cost so you don't have to eat it. So every taxpayer doesn't have to eat it.
Right. All right, I'll put those numbers together, and I'll see you next meeting with them.
thank you for that.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions? All right, have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you.
Nate?
Good afternoon. Updates for you on Bridge 19, that's the bridge on County Road 800 East, north of County Road 900 South. Work on the bridge is planned to start here in December. I know I talked about that just in general terms, and I got to stick with that. The shop drawings have been submitted, so I know that's out for fabrication on that three-sided box. I still don't have a solid start date in December yet, but as soon as I do, I'll send that out to dispatch and to the schools. I don't think Southern Wells has a bus route, but somebody told me that South Adams does, so I will have to actually talk to them as well on their bus loops for it. But once I have that, that'll go out. But Judy Construction is looking at starting on that here soon, so December is right around the corner. Next item I have for you is the NOFA, that's the Notice of Funding Availability. That's the next federal aid call that has come out. That opened on November 1st. It actually only has about a 30-day submittal window, so I need to have applications in for that by really the 1st or 2nd of December. I think it's that Friday, that first Friday in December is the application deadline. So I really don't have a lot of time for an application on this. Projects that we've discussed in the past, so these are projects that we've kicked around before, I think during the last call, included applications for bridges 72 and 76. And then we also were looking at possible road projects on County Road 450 East between 124 and US 224, and also looking at County Road 300 North between State Road 116 and State Road 1. Regarding the road projects, we really don't have a funding mechanism for local match for the road projects. Unless you were to carve it out of LIT or carve it out of the highway department budget and then accumulate that over a 5 or 6 year period, there's really not a mechanism for us to do that. So at this time, I'm really not recommending that we look at the road projects right now until like a CUME capital fund or something else were available to be directed towards those. But on Bridge 72 and 76, I'd sent you some numbers earlier on those. Either one would be eligible or something that we could consider. I just don't know that there's going to be enough funds in the CUME Bridge account to cover those. You have 4 bridge projects in the CUME Bridge Fund for federal aid right now. Those are in fiscal years 24 and 25. This is for federal aid for fiscal year 2028. So there is a bit of a gap for that account to accumulate some additional funds. But with the inflation that we have right now, I'm looking at anywhere from $573,000 in local match up to $659,000 in local match. Right now, CUME Bridge brings in about $400,000 or so $1,000 a year. So this needs about a year and a half, about 3 disbursements to even accumulate the sort of match money we're talking about. Now, that doesn't take into account any inflation or increases in appraised or assessed values. That would have an impact on this because your CUME Bridge is about 2.5 cents per $100 assessed value. That's essentially your rate you're bringing in. So if something were to change, based on these, the lower cost one would be Bridge 72. at about the $573,000 in local funds, and that's the bridge all carrying County Road 300 West over the Stiles Ditch. That's between 400 and 500 south.
But when we reviewed those last time, didn't we say that we pushed them off because we didn't really see a need or time to spend? We've done so much repair on bridges to this point that we kind of pushed those out.
We pushed them out, one because I was concerned about the availability of Cume Bridge Fund, and so this gives you essentially another year of a cushion in that. If we wanted to wait another year and push these out to 2029, another call, we can certainly do that.
There's no hazards, no immediate.
Well, there,
I inspected them, I went out and drove them and went down in ditch line, looked at them. The one on 300 West, south of Liberty, probably might be ready for it around 28 to 30. The one farther west on 500 is on a much less traveled road by far. And to me, that one there might be able to 20, 30, or 32 even, but that's just my opinion, observation, but I am not an official bridge inspector either.
Which one do you think is?
South of Liberty, 300 to be the one I would recommend, but.
that would be 72, yeah.
But
And there's no
choose to do it
perfect.
in 28 or 29, I don't think we can go wrong, but the biggest thing is the funding side of it on our share.
It's just
Have the
the
funds.
issues your share, and there's no perfect calculation on when these are gonna fail. As they get older, they start to deteriorate faster. I know it's just kind of the weather of them. You know, the first 20, 30 years of a bridge, it looks the same as it always did. As it starts to deteriorate, it just deteriorates quicker and quicker. It's sort of a sliding scale, kind of a backwards hockey stick as the sufficiencies and age go. So I really don't know. 1 year may not be a problem. Sometimes it becomes a bigger issue. That's why we inspect them every 2 years to kind of see where the reports are at. These are eligible for federal aid, and so if we're in a situation where we want to go for the funds, I could say in some confidence, I think our odds are very good. We've been seeing communities not apply for funds. You know, you're talking about a little over a $2 million grant for just even Bridge 72 if you were to go for that. But again, you have to come up with
The deadline is what, the first week of
I
December?
think it's the first Friday in
Friday.
December, so
I
I
think
don't,
you're right.
I have to have this application in probably the Monday, Tuesday, right after Thanksgiving. That's probably when I have to have that in by, just so I've got a little bit of cushion. So I would have to bring a financial commitment letter to you at your next meeting in November if you want to apply. So I would need to know.
I usually don't look at buying a car if I don't have the down payment. If we don't have the down payment, I say we push it off a year until we have the funds available to do it. It's my opinion.
I'd be okay waiting one more year.
So push it to 29.
Right. Because we don't have the funding source right now, and the cost of inflation of these projects having increased exponentially.
30% or something we were talking today.
You know.
150, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've seen about a 30% increase just in 12 months through NDOT projects just last year. So it's starting to impact a lot of the projects that you've got either in the queue or what you're looking at in the future. So it's nothing we could forecast.
In the last, I don't know how many years, 6, 8 years, we've done, I don't know how many bridges, and it's not like we're kicking the can down the road on repair.
No, we've
We've got to
been,
be fiscally responsible about.
Yep. Yep, that's fine. All right. Next item here is for VTF. This is regarding the Regional Sewer District project in Craigville. VTF, and I think I sent you out in an email, and Mike, you have a copy of that letter in front of you. VTF is asking for permission to use a asphalt cold patch for road maintenance. Initially, we told them that they weren't allowed to cut any of the numbered roads through the winter months from essentially what we identified was October 31st to essentially when the asphalt plants open next spring in April or May of next year. They are asking for permission to cut the sections of 700 East in Craigville, so it's the lower speed limit areas there in Craigville, and they have in their bid to accommodate that cut by patching the road with a cold mix asphalt. So it's something that they can place in the winter months to maintain traffic in that area. So we won't have a situation with open aggregate. It's a little more expensive, obviously. It's not something that I think they would prefer to do, but to maintain their schedule, they're asking to do those cuts, maintain the road. The condition and conversations with Sean on that is that VTF would accept responsibility to maintain the placement of that asphalt, that cold mix asphalt, for the duration of the winter months. So they can't place it and forget it. We're not responsible to go back in and patch that they would be patching that within the travel lanes. We're not asking them to patch the shoulders with the cold mix, but that where they're going to be traveling, that they would have to patch that.
I don't like the 21 days, calendar days, so they can open cut it and wait 3 weeks before they come back and put the cold mix in it. Is that what I'm reading?
That's what they had requested. Would you you're asked to do that under
It should
like
be
a
10 or
14?
14 days max. Is that unrealistic? I mean,
Part of that's going to be that they're going to have to, from the time they open it,
Yeah.
put the pipe in and get the connections made and then backfill that. They probably need at least the 14 days in that. I can work with them to try to reduce that.
plate compactor or?
They would end up
hammer?
doing something on a compactor, whether it's a walk behind within the trench that they'd be using or something on the end of the bucket for their excavator. So they've used both depending on the location.
So that's from the time they cut it open to the time they patch it, but is that from the time are they gonna close the road to cut it?
They would end up closing the lane while they're cutting that. So most of the work based on the graphics they sent out, it's not down the middle of the road. It's not that they're gonna be closing the road.
So to Blake's point, why not, a day, 2 days after they get it up to elevation?
Make
they
it one,
patch it?
half of one drive lane, get to the other side, backfill it, plate compactor, and 2 days they'll have aggregate on it to make it drivable.
Days, that's a
That's,
month.
that was a request. Now, I can certainly go back to them with a shorter
10 or
period.
14, but that's just
Yeah,
my
why don't
opinion.
we reduce it to 10?
Ask them for 10 and be satisfied with 14 if that's what they counted or something, I don't know.
That'd be our preference, or as soon as they can.
I can take that back to them.
I'll make that in a motion, form of a motion.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
3-0.
All right,
So that motion is including those 10 days.
with the 10 days.
Correct,
Yep,
yes.
that is with the 10 days. All right, I will let them know. Thank you. Road conversion schedule, just wanted to update you that right-of-way packets have been mailed out to about 90% of the right-of-way parcels on all the road conversion sections we've had. I've had one property owner come in and another call regarding that, but I haven't received any right-of-way packets back signed and notarized yet for us, but there may be some on the list. But we should get some out. The last 10%, I need to talk to Ashley there in Collins Firm to make sure I've got some corrections on a few that need to go out yet, but that'll be all out before the end of this year, obviously. So, 2023, the annual bid advertisement that was posted in the newspaper and it's on the county website. We have sent the list of the materials and the bid specification out to a number of our vendors. So pretty well everyone we buy regular products from has received a copy of that advertisement as well, whether it's fuel or oils. So we should have that, and that'll be opening on December 5th. So it'll be your first meeting in December. We'll have that for 2023 bids. Wells County, just a note on the RSD, the district, I'm not sure if I brought this up at the last meeting, it's not been on here before, but the district has formally been awarded a $3 million forgivable loan. So that's essentially a grant from the structure, and that is going to be for sewering the Kingsland collection system. So I just wanted to make it a point to kind of thank the county for the support of the ARPA dollars, the $2 million in ARPA funds that were committed to the district. That was committed prior to even the Craigville project. And that money was able to not only fund the $5 million there, but this additional $3 million. So really, the RSD was able to leverage that $2 million into additional $8 million in infrastructure to the county. And that still is pending. That number may go up if they're able to be funded for parts of Toxin in next year. So that's kind of you're up to $8 million return on that investment. There may be more when they come to the Toxin project. So I want to thank you and the council for the support in doing that, and hopefully we keep seeing kind of the return on that investment of those dollars. So, next item is just utility permits, and not a few, we got 5 different ones here, so it's on the list. Zayo, 2 for Century, or Citizens Telephone, and then 2 for Heartland REMC, and I'm just recommending approval on those 4, 5 permits.
Seconded.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
3-0.
And then last, were there any right-of-way dedications that you had, Colin? 4. You have 4, so recommending approval.
You made the motion on that.
Oh,
To
second.
accept it. All in favor, aye? 3-0 on that.
All right. Appreciate it. Any questions for me? Excellent. Hey, thank you very much.
You, Nate, appreciate it.
Health renewal, Ms. Jessica Clayton.
Hello.
You? Thank you.
Righty. So again, this is Jessica Clayton here to talk about Wells County insurance renewal effective January 1st, 2023. So everything we're talking about is effective January 1st. Feels a little way out, but it'll be here before we know it. So if you open up your folder on the right side, that's where everything that we'll be going over. So not only will we be going over your renewal, but all the outside options that I explored for your group, all outside carriers that made sense. So if you turn to just page 3, just before we kind of start to unpack this, over the last 6 years, your group's average renewal increase has actually been 0.3%, which, had to triple check that math because typically the national average is 10 to 12% each year. Just the trend increase across all group sizes, different carriers. So 10 to 12 is the national average, but for Wells County, negative 0.3% has been the 6-year average. So you guys have trended very, very well overall. And if you turn to page 4, you see the, as far as your overall renewal from PHP. So your medical insurance is through PHP, stands for Physicians Health Plan, out of Northeast Indiana. So your initial renewal came in at 15%, and you have that 40% refund agreement. So just to kind of recap, you guys are fully insured today. That means, you pay the premiums, those are set in stone, whether or not the plan is, if members are using the plan or not. So it's that safety net to have in place. However, the 40% refund agreement would come into play is if and when your plan trends well, and then you get to share in that premium surplus, which has paid out in previous years. So it's a nice protection of the plan for when things go bust, but also the opportunity to win and get money back to the county for when you guys trend well. And that first line up there, it says the initial underwriting formula called for 37.6%. So all carriers do things a little bit differently. Anthem, United Healthcare, I'm not beating up on anybody, this is just how it is. Their group's renewals, they just automatically, the formula calls for X amount, and that's what is sent out. That's what PHP does. They see that it was calling for a 37% increase based off of your guys' claims. However, they go, there's no way we're going to go out with the 37. So human hands touch your renewal. It initially came in at 15. I was able to negotiate it down to 9% and keep the 40% refund agreement. So again, not trying to rationalize it, but again, trying to get it down to where, below the national average is based off of your guys' claims. Your group's claims experience last year has been pretty rough. Your expense ratio or your loss ratio, that is your total amount of claims over the total amount of premium paid. The sweet spot where you want that to be at is in between 70 to 80%. Wells County came in at 118%. So your total claims outweighed the premium that was paid. I highlighted some of the key claimants that have been affecting your plan. So you had one over 200,000, you have a couple over 100,000 in claims. So again, it's nice to have the protection of the plan, to pay for them, and still have a 9% coming out of that. PHP did share a couple different alternative plan options by increasing the deductible. We'll kind of go through those a little bit further. So I do want you to know that 9% doesn't necessarily have to be the end of the story. If you increase the deductible slightly, it could feel like a 5% over your current or a 4%. So again, in the insurance world, how do you reduce premiums? You increase the deductible, and so that's where that would come into play. So there are a couple different options for you in that regard. Okay? Any questions on the PHP before we kind of look at the outside options? Okay. So again, at this point in time, fully insured is definitely where we recommend you guys staying, and that's what we looked at with Anthem and United Healthcare. Anthem came in at 4% over your current. UHC, United Healthcare, they came in at 27% over your current. So something to keep in mind how you guys are structured today. You're fully insured. You have this high deductible, the $6,000 deductible. However, we've layered on that PHP HRA, that if and when I hit the 3,000 threshold, then Wells County reimburses me as a member here if I were enrolled. Okay, so there's kind of some moving pieces. So PHP, it works very, very seamless. It's very, very easy. Service-wise, they are fantastic with that. So with Anthem and United Healthcare, they do not have an in-house HRA that's very seamless with that. And the level funded, the partially self-funded, I'm always looking at outside options. Cigna is one of the best in class in that arena, and they declined to quote you just based off of your overall risk right now. So again, I want you to know I'm always looking at outside, different funding strategies as well. Your principal renewal with dental, vision, group life, and voluntary life all came in at 0%, so no changes there. Okay. So as we move on, page 5 shows your current plan structure. You see the 9% revised renewal at the top there. And I even put the HRA arrangement, how it's structured today. So the employee true out-of-pocket is $3,000 for an individual, $6,000 for a family. So I would propose that would not change, keep that as is. And so this is how things would look if you changed nothing else and just renewed. So it'd be 9%, and those rates can be found on page 6. So page 6 shows that you have 118 total enrolled. You see your current monthly rates, your renewal rates, and then off to the far right column shows your monthly revised renewal for your current plan.
Plug in. Okay.
Is that overall cost, like total cost, or is just that Wells County's contribution?
Budget number is
I
what?
didn't know if it was the total amount or just what the country, okay, gotcha. Okay. So I did mention that PHP showed a couple different alternates. Those are found on page 7 and 8. So what would that look like? It would be taking your $6,000 deductible and toggling up to the $6,750. So at the bottom, I still kind of amended that HRA structure. So to keep the employee out-of-pocket exposure the same, what would happen with that is Wells County would take on a little bit of extra exposure, to pay reimburse the back end with that. And the next one is, again, increasing even further. The rates would be at 4% over current. Page 9 shows the overall PHP alternates. So current, your revised renewal, and then those two other alternates that would reduce premiums, but it would also increase the deductible. So where you guys fall today, the national average, like total cost of just to have the plan in place is $9,000 to $12,000 per person on an annual basis. So you guys, even with your renewal, you're right at, when I did the calculation, you're right at the top of that. You're right at like 12,000. So again, right in the average of where a plan should cost. So even with the renewal. So again, my point is to just say you're trending right in the average with that. Any questions on the renewal, the alternates? How do you guys feel about keeping the current plan versus amending that?
If we want to,
No, there's no no need. As far as the HRA reimbursements, the whole, I mean, the rates would go down, employee exposure would stay the same, but again, the only, question mark is, okay, how much more would the county be taking on? And as far as the reimbursements, I mean, it's, every time we calculate it, it still makes sense to have the HRA in place. You're not reimbursing every single person. It's been 15 to 20% of folks get reimbursed. So it's, by taking on additional, would it be worth it? That's kind of the question. Yeah, so I mean, we can run some additional numbers after the fact, but just wanted you to know that you had a couple different plan options there. So on page 10 shows Anthem's plan design, 11 is UHC, and page 12 shows Anthem and UHC, United Healthcare, paired up against your renewal. So again, my recommendation would be to stay with PHP. They're the most competitive. They're the easy button as far as how things just get processed, especially with, they've been a great partner to Wells County as well. So. And then again, the remaining pages just have to do with your principal renewal, all staying at 0%. So that's kind of a same plan designs, same rates, which is always great news. So again, nothing needs to be decided today. Just wanted to kind of communicate that you have a great renewal in spite of your claims conditions during this last year.
We've had some bad accidents.
Yeah.
Have affected a few.
Yes, yes. Yep.
I mean, for calculating over the years, being, this is my 10th time around to see where this is, and where we've increased the premiums overall, I think could be a lot worse. And, I mean, the savings, moving the HRA amount is like between like $4,000 and $6,000 of savings. It's not significant when you're talking numbers, the way we're
Right.
talking numbers. So I would support waiting to the next meeting, but I'm leaning toward just renewing as we've got a policy in place, but that's.
I agree with that. Give us some time to work through the math.
Okay,
Okay,
we're going to wait till the next meeting.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Brandon?
Gentlemen, got an update for you on Peterborough Code of Conduct that we discussed a few months ago. Copy for each of you. We've simplified it. And you can read through it there. I also have, since the last time we spoke, I have recommendations and action steps from the DLGF. This was a pleasant surprise. When I was putting this together, I did not realize that the DLGF was actually going to encourage something like this. They want to see, and they note here that they don't have the authority to compel a county to do this, but they would like to see something in writing, a standardized process for how the PETA-BOA ought to conduct itself. It doesn't have to be exhaustive, and the final bullet point that in the code of conduct before you clarifies that this is not exhaustive, but for someone on PETA-BOA, whether it's a new member or an existing member, this can sort of help number one, educate them or remind them sort of what their job is. And it also just provides guidelines in terms of what the county sees as its priorities. This is a quasi-judicial board, and based on my experience before the board earlier this year, it did not really possess the gravitas that it ought to have in terms of how the meeting's carried out, how the meeting's recorded, where the parties are in the room during that process. Just for example, and I may have mentioned this last time, but when you walk into the Peterboa, it is a sort of a court, it's a judicial proceeding. I mean, the Peterboa is the first stage in a 4-stage process, which can end at the Supreme Court, Indiana Supreme Court. But you walk in there, and the plaintiff, the taxpayer, sits here where I am, and the defendant, the tax assessor of the county, sits with the Peterboa on the other side of the table. And that, for just a normal taxpayer, can seem kind of strange. It's like going into a courtroom and you're the plaintiff and the defendant is setting up with the judge. So those are some of the small things that we can iron out with a good code of conduct. We also have procedures in there for making sure that the meetings are recorded, how to resolve disputes, and I'll bring this up. Just a general approach. There is an emphasis that DLGF guidelines and Indiana State Code need to be followed. The Peterboa is supposed to be a check on the assessor. It's not supposed to be a rubber stamp, and unfortunately, it can become that. I'm not saying that it is that way, but I've read cases in other counties with the Indiana Board of Tax Review where the IBTR looks at the case and they're just kind of confused as to why it's even before them, because it should have been handled locally. So this sort of helps the Peterboa understand and in a sense, remind them that they're allowed to go in that direction. If they disagree, they don't have to feel pressured to rule in favor of the county. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I've tried to write this with counsel. I've tried to maintain the spirit of what the DLGF would like to see. I've worked with tax representative to put this together.
So I had a conversation with Brandon and just asked that we be able to show this to the assessor's department and get some feedback from them so that everybody that's involved or part of this has some input. And hopefully we can come as a group and say, this is how we're going to run the county.
Yeah, I think that's ideal. I know there's an election tomorrow. We'll have a new assessor in the county, and we should get her on board. I think that's optimal.
My suggestion is that we take this under advisement, get the assessor before the next meeting, get some feedback from the incoming assessor and see if there's any edits, bring those to the group.
Yeah, this is a draft.
If there's feedback or additional points that need to be added or
But
whatever.
aside of a code of conduct, I mean, if the DLGF has said, these are what we'd like to see happen, none of this is unreasonable. I mean, recording the meeting, they should be doing that. In the interim, I mean, we can ask any of our appointees or the Peterboa members to follow what the DLGF has set out as guidelines currently, which they should be doing. I mean, that's reasonable. While this is taken under advisement, we're waiting for some collaboration from the assessor's office and other interested parties. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Let me backslide.
This is the first time I've seen this.
Yeah,
So this
I mean,
review, give the assessor a chance to look at this and get whatever feedback. I just think it'd be better if everybody gets, it doesn't mean we all have to agree, but everybody should have a chance to review it and put their input into it before we just
Right.
stamp it and say, here's the standard.
Where can we find the source material for this?
So the original document was significantly longer. This was their conclusion at the end of their review. I had filed a written complaint following the Peterboa meeting earlier this year. I I can provide you the full context of these recommendations.
Kept in record somewhere in the DLGF's database or source material that they would put out?
No, it won't be
It's not.
public,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
I'm sure the assessor got the same copy.
Right,
Yes.
right,
If I could see that too, I'd like to.
absolutely.
So let's get through tomorrow's election, identify who the assessor is, then I'll take the task to set it up and get a meeting set up with them.
That'd be perfect. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, sir. Cell phone policy. What have we discovered, Colin, as far as obstructions or ease of process as far as policy is concerned?
In looking through this, and my main concern were State Board of Accounts issues and tax issues as well. It looks like the county has a pretty free and clear pathway to craft a policy that the county would desire. I isolated what I thought were three main issues in having a reimbursement policy. The county already offers a cell phone to employees. It costs $38 to $39 a month, I believe, is what Lisa told me. The first question is, how are we going to calculate what a reimbursement is? Should it be a per minute, per text message? We have to develop a structure of defining what we're going to be paying our employees, and that can be burdensome. We could get itemized statements that would have phone numbers there. You wouldn't know if that phone number is county business or not. I don't know how you'd ever track that, and it would also be burdensome on the employees as well, trying to track that. I talked to Jared earlier today, and he told me that a lot of cell phone plans don't send you itemized statements on text messages. They don't show one, probably because they, your average teenager would have, a dictionary size cell phone bill. So, that is an option that you could craft if you'd like. The other option that you could craft if you want an alternative would be to just have a flat rate. If someone was offered a phone, declined to use a county phone, wanted to use their own for county business, we know that it costs us $38, $39 a month to grant someone access to a county-owned cell phone. You could just reimburse at a flat rate, at that rate or lower or higher, whatever you want. Or you could just opt to not do any of it altogether and have a uniform policy. The other aspect of this that I neglected to mention is that defining who should get this reimbursement is tricky. It could just be department heads. It could be all members of certain departments. It could be based on need, but every individual department has different needs. And for example, the clerk's office right now is going, they're having a heck of a time because they're going through an election. And so their needs every 2 years or so are pretty different than they are other years. And so those are all policy decisions that you should all feel free to explore and rule on. I don't think there's anything legally restricting your ability to handle any of those options and cobbling a plan together in any way that you see fit.
So Colin, if there's a formal request from the public for information, and it's on somebody's private phone, they've used it for county business, do they have to relinquish all their phone records for?
If it's a public information request, well, they could be subject to that. They could be subject to that. Now, there's ways of tailoring that and making it so that it's not as expansive as just give me your phone and let me look through it. When the benefit of a county cell phone for everyone is that it would be subject to our rules and our handbook, and that those should be used outside of de minimis circumstances for county business, and so everyone's on notice. I will say too that the push towards more government transparency, while welcome, we get a lot of public records requests, we get a lot of public information requests, and not always from individuals who just want to know, but for individuals who are just looking to dig things up. And the county attorney's here to protect against that, but we're subject to the laws just like anybody else.
So my recommendation, and just thinking of it that way, if it was just a regular business, I have it both ways. I carry 2 phones all the time. I have some of my employees that carry 1, I give them a reimbursement. But I don't have that clause that somebody can call and say, hey, I want all your records, and they have to turn over their personal phone. So with that being said, I'd lean towards it's a county phone. That way, if there is that call that we have to give it, you pull the phone, you give the record, it's 1 record, it's easy to do, it's not an administration nightmare. That's my,
Just in the description of, to try to craft policy to select departments or select department heads, I mean, for what we're discussing on a phone, I think I'm leaning with you that a phone should be available or made available. And I think that's how we should craft the policy. So I think the reimbursement side of it, there's too many possibilities that you would run into that, so.
my second.
choice would be to just alleviate that option.
My second question is, how do we identify what level? I mean, does it go down to Sean's group where they're driving truck and they get a call? I mean, that's the other slippery slope about, I don't know that it makes sense that for everybody in the county to have a county phone. So I don't know where to go with that. But again, I think I'm recommending that we stay with a assigned phone from the county for the public information's piece of it. And then we have to figure out to what level that's even offered. And I'm not sure how we do that yet. I need some recommendations from you, Colin, about how we determine, or from the department's heads, how we determine, or a policy of here's how you determine who gets a phone, or who needs a phone. Maybe not who gets a phone, but who needs a phone.
And we don't issue phones to just anyone that wants it. I mean, everybody that has phones has had, same people in that department have had those phones for years and years and years. So if the assessor would all of a sudden want a phone, she would have to come to you for approval to get a phone because she's never had a phone before.
Gotcha. So it does come through this group to get a phone.
If it's for someone who has never,
Right. Somebody that currently does not have one, we would have to grant approval as the commissioners.
How is that currently policed as far as what's personal and what's business?
We don't. We trust the employee, that they do it for the proper purpose and
We do have a technology policy that,
right, we have a document.
and so if there is misuse, it can be remedied through disciplinary action.
Essentially, we're following that policy, and when there's an issue arises, we're going to follow that we have already in place. Okay. How do you guys want to proceed on it?
I'll make it in the form of a motion if you need it.
Do we need to do a motion, Lisa?
do you want, I mean, we really don't have a policy. Do you
Right.
want Colin to create a policy,
I just need to know
what the policy needs to say?
what we do if they can make the request to, and then it's subject to our technology policy. I could craft a new one to create a procedure if someone wanted to get one. If we don't have that, but you already have that power to do that.
I would just say we'll have to leave it as is, and if there's a request for a phone,
That comes through.
come through us
I don't know
and.
that it needs a motion.
Correct. Sounds.
Blake?
How's everyone doing today?
Good, how are you?
Colin and I have been working on this for, how long?
It's like forever, Blake.
Yeah, this spring I came before you and asked about updating Tina Williams' job position. We looked at doing contractual. Unbeknownst to Colin and I, the day after we talked to the council about contractual, the Federal Department of Labor and the White House came out with their zig and zag on trying to make all contractual employees non-contractual around the country. So that we didn't know that was going on. Colin had some very uninformative information from the Department of Labor when we talked to council last month. And the next day, I was watching Fox Financial and across my news stream, it alerted, they came out and just said, oh, we're going to redo the way the whole thing contractual employees are, even for gig companies, everything. So they're trying to force everyone to be an employee, and there's a host of reasons why I won't go into. So we talked to council. They said they're more comfortable with doing an adjustment of the current job description, which I handed out. I also pulled the expert. She's on Medicare right now, so she doesn't need insurance, which in the handbook, that allows her to do 30 hours a week. That's per the handbook policy. So I would ask that we be able to do that. I cut and pasted the section from the handbook for you guys and within the body of the job description. As you can tell, it's a very extensive and detailed job description that we use. This complies with the Department of Corrections requirements for what we have to submit annually in the grant, and has been reviewed by them already and approved for this next year's grant.
Did the corrections board vote on this too? Did they look at it? And
No, because this was supposed to come back to the council and the commissioners.
Anybody on the board know that this request is being made to us,
We've been
Commissioner?
talking about it since spring. I mean,
Right, the policy,
Yeah.
the policy, but this individual?
well, I've made her wait almost 6 months now. She has I gotta be careful since we're live cast. Her husband has a medical issue that we're trying to keep her knowledge and skills and get it to work out, as I explained back in, was it April, May? I slept once or twice since then, I apologize. So, I mean,
to that point, what are you doing? So obviously there's an end date to this, right?
if she would leave.
Yeah. So what are we
it would
doing to train and
Revert back to the old job description,
for who?
for whoever's taken.
So we'd hire somebody new.
Yeah.
And they'd be 40 hours, go back to.
They may go from part-time to full-time, it just depends where we're at, what the state's requiring. You know, a lot of these are unknowns, I don't know in the future, I'm not sure what to tell you, but this would end with her employment.
Just thinking if we approve this, there still needs to be, step 2 needs to be, what are we doing for bench strength? Who's taking this over at some point? And what's the
This point in
training on?
time, no offense, Mike and I have talked about this, no company has any bench strength right now. We don't have skilled people. I mean, you could have department heads retire tomorrow, and we really don't have a lot of bench strength. I mean, my position, I have nobody internally that could take over the knowledge base I've accumulated over 33 years, and all the connections in Indianapolis, around the state. I mean, it's the same thing everyone I talk to around the country. I have friends who own companies, manage companies, plant managers. They're in the same boat. They're saying, 2 jobs for every 1 person out there. It's just kind of the quandary we're in and the era that we're in economically. So, I mean, Tina and I have tried to put in a recession or retention plan. We engineered thinking, we knew this was going to come up 14 years ago when we started talking about this. And we, in earnest, 12 years ago, started focusing on this, saying, okay, how do we, for each position, create some kind of a segue or retention to promote up from maybe different areas of the operation? We've been able to do that for everything but my position. And I don't know what to tell you. Mike, like I said, Mike and I have discussed this many a time, and it's not like you're just going to have someone fall out of the sky. Hopefully, you'd have somebody apply. I can't guarantee anything after I leave.
I'm talking this one, not yours.
For this one. And I'll tell you, with Tina's background and scope, she has a PhD, and she has a master's in computer management and science, as well as other sub-degrees and trainings and certifications for life skills coaching. I mean, the state, she worked for DOC before she came to me, and they invested heavily in her training. She was our program manager before she retired and came up here to work for me. So, it's, when you start talking 20, 30, 35 years of knowledge and experience, it's hard to replace that for anybody.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that, like, what I'm saying is that this lady is not gonna be doing this job for much longer.
No.
She's spending 7 hours in the office a week, 23 hours away. So whether we find somebody or we don't find somebody, the writing's on the wall that this position's gonna be
Right.
open at some point soon.
And I have,
Need to start looking.
I have
and,
started-
Let me finish.
Okay.
And the hours here of 7 hours a week isn't gonna be the person that trains whoever's coming in. So just, my thought process is, I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just saying this is a red flag that we gotta do something, and something pretty quick, because this can be an open position, could be temporary for now, but it's gonna be an open position soon.
and
And that's what leads me to believe that I think if we choose to do this, we put a time limit on it and then revisit it again,
I think
rather
we-
than to leave it go indefinite.
can I request 2 years for time limit on it?
I think if we approve this now, we actually put a posting out for somebody to train with her.
Well, but my problem is we've set the budget for next year with the state. I don't have that kind of flexibility. And we've already set county council budgets, and for me to amend the grant process is rather,
Okay, so
Cumbersome.
with that said, when would you post it? Because next year you'll be sitting here in front of me saying, I can't do it next year because I've already put my budget in. So if you at
Well-
least post it now, we're saying it's hard to find people. It might take you 6 months to a year. If we
but
identify
I'm
one,
not sure she hasn't submitted her leaving. So to post it, you're not going to get people to apply if it's an open-end posting. See what I'm saying, Jeff? I mean, it's kind of, it's.
I could what if it to death, Mike.
I know,
think
and
that
that's
if
what
you
I'm
don't do
saying.
something now, we have somebody that's working 7 hours a week inside, 23 hours outside. It's a short-term fill, 2 years, whatever it may be. I'm just saying we ought to, as a group, we ought to be looking, not just this position either. Who else is going to term out? Are we opening those positions, knowing that it's a higher position now? There's not enough people out there. So if you get somebody, it's a home run, maybe we can figure out a way to fund it for him. But if you find the right person, but let's not wait until it might not be 2 years, she comes in and says, I'm out. And now you're swimming with nobody in there. So
I-
just-
Want to review in like 6 months is what you're saying, just come back and revisit.
yeah, I think
Subject.
6 months, yep. It doesn't mean that he's got to change it again, but where are we at? Where's she at? What are we thinking? And not just that, I would ask all the department heads to do the same thing. If we've got people that are terming out.
I mean, the 23 hours away, how's your measure of accountability with it?
We have currently, she works after hours and trying to accommodate her husband's situation, has been doing that since first part of the year.
Right, but I mean,
We have
measurable back to you. Can you,
Right, she
is it documented?
emails my administrative assistant and I when she comes in after hours. She gives me a detailed email when she checks out what projects she's working on and where we're at on progress. We meet weekly and do a debrief on where we're at with the host of things we've got for the state. I mean, we're getting ready for the CPAI, Correctional Programming Assessment Inventory. I'm going to cover that at the next board meeting. This is the first time the state's doing that, and it's going to be a complete change from used to be like the jail inspector's visit. They'd go through and you get a check and a score. Well, this is a whole different thing, and we're having to train boards, staff. We just had a 3-hour video meeting with DOC's team doing this around the state 2 weeks ago and discussing what we need to do for prep work for the January, for them coming in to start the process. So,
She has a list of expected tasks
Yes.
or things that
Yeah,
are
and
going
it's
to
in-
sort of be
it's in the
annual.
job description.
Right,
Yeah.
they're going to be annual no matter what. These tasks are going to pop up. Certain paperwork has to be in, certain testing and or qualifications you have to show, and also prove that you're doing what you're supposed to do over there. And then the plethora of grants you're going to be applying for every year, right?
and if you go through our job description, it details all
Right,
that.
absolutely.
I mean, it's exhaustive. Every one of our job descriptions for every position in our department meets this same format and protocol for the state. That's one thing that we've been very blessed. The state's been very happy with the way we probably exhaustively detail stuff. But then they know that when we're sitting down and they're doing, that's why we have, knock on wood, no troubles with the grant.
And it takes a certain amount of time to prepare every one of these programs and to make sure that you're following the guidelines of the state and federal requirements, right? So you could about go through this list, is what you're saying, and figure out it's going to take X amount of hours for each one of these tasks, is what you're saying.
Quite honestly, she's gonna probably do extra work after the 30 hours just to keep up. But that's, I work after hours. I mean, I don't know how many times I've talked to each one of you gentlemen on weekends or at night after the end of the day. I mean, it goes with the job.
So it'd be fair to say even the hours that we're requesting, she's probably working over some of those
Yes,
just
she
to
is.
stay on top of the requirements.
Yes. Very much so.
So I'd propose to make the recommendation to approve it, but with a 6-month review of how's it going and what's the plan, not just for this position, but what's the plan to fill the vacancy and train? I mean, I think there's two pieces of this. One is it's it's reduced hours, but if you have to backfill and train somebody,
Well,
It's gonna
continuation
be
of
tough to
program.
do this.
Continuation of program. I mean, no matter what, it has to go forward, so we have to be planning that way anyway.
And Jeff, so I think we're one of the few departments, if the only department, does an annual SWOT analysis. So we've done that going back 12, 14 years. And that was part of our whole progress, things that have come out of that. Every one of my positions have a daily list that they submit to me that we use for our CQI plan for the state. We basically presented every step of their day and everything they do throughout the day. They report to me how many people were seen for this. Did we meet the weekly, daily, monthly, bi-weekly? My administrative assistant has a 2-page that goes into extreme detail of what her duties are every day through annual. And she signifies what she did. It's like we just sent out the monthly report to the council and commissioners. That's on Deb's daily checklist. On this day, she did that. I sign off on it. It goes to Tina for the continuous quality improvement plan. She signs off and then correlates it and calculates it into our SWOT analysis.
I'll make the motion to approve this.
Contingent on the
Contingent
6-month
upon
review.
6-month review, and
I want to
then,
just make that July 1st, or since we're April 1st?
First meeting of April, whatever that is.
with the request, I don't know, it has to be part of this motion, but with the request, that we take a look at what other positions, including this one, do we have that we're worried about terming out in the next 12 months that.
Are you asking that for system-wide for the whole county? Because I think that's one of the biggest threats we have in the county. When I start looking, after Marlene retires on the 10th, I will be the longest-sitting continuous department head. And I know that there are quite a few department heads that either by elected terms or age that are appointed are going to be coming up in the next 5 years. And that could be detrimental to the
I
operations.
think it'll be part of employee reviews or anything else, just.
Already see it in Sean's area, we've lost how many people this year?
2 weeks' notice put in today.
Yep, so, need some planning. So I make the motion that we approve this with the April 1st meeting of April
First
review.
meeting.
But before we, I have a question. Currently, we have what I'll call a no remote work policy in our handbook. That'll need to be amended if we're going to allow,
I'm pretty sure, because we talked about this when we put in, I read it last night, I'm pretty sure it says they have to come to us for approval to be able to do this. You can double check it, but
Yeah, if it needs to be amended, then we can, but I thought there was something in there that
Case by
said this
case.
too. I thought there wasn't, there isn't, there probably should be.
and I don't have it in front of me. My recollection was that it had to be renewed fairly often because we thought of it as temporary. 2 week, I think. So we may
We'll
need
amend
to
that.
modify it slightly to accommodate a temporary change that you're making here, subject to review.
Make sure that's on the agenda for the next meeting, then.
Yeah, have that on the next meeting.
No problem. And I appreciate it. Like I said, Colin and I looked at every option we had, and then the federal government kind of messed up the universe. And That's how it happens.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
3-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your help on this.
Economic Development Plan. Who's representing this?
For your plan. Your current economic development plan is for 22, 23, 24. But for 2023, you have made some modifications in that plan. So, hence the update. This would be for 2023, 24, and 25. Some of the changes were, Upper Wabash River Basin, you want to give them a little more money, same way with the Historical Society. Care of students, you're going to take that expense away from the general fund. 911 services for next year.
It's a big add.
Changes of such. There's 6 projects listed within your plan. And your estimated revenue over the next 3 years is $4,893,599, and you have to spend at least 75% of that, which you do.
Okay.
I believe that's 3.6 million that you have to spend, and you're spending 3.7.
And we will have a request for fireworks. Is that
10,000,
correct, or is
right?
that the swimming pool or the fireworks?
It is.
For next meeting.
Fireworks at the next meeting.
That was 10,000, correct?
And that number goes from 5 up to
Fireworks.
9, maybe?
Okay.
Oh, it is just 5, I was thinking it was 10. Do you want to wait to do this next time then? Let's wait.
Yeah, because there's it'd be better than going back and modifying it.
Yep.
So,
I just thought about that right now, sorry
yeah,
about that.
thank you, because I remember it once you said it. 'Cause like,
We didn't get it on this agenda,
Right.
so we'll have it, so.
Right. American Rescue Plan, local assistance.
Okay, the American Rescue Plan, the Treasury is gonna distribute 2 more tranches of funding for approximately 33 counties. Wells County is one of those counties. And we are eligible for $50,000 ending the fiscal year of '22 and $50,000 for 2023. We go through the same portal that we went before to get our first batch. So I just need permission to go in and apply for that money.
Yes.
Permission granted. That's my motion.
That's an easy one. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0.
And that can be spent on pretty much anything except for like lobbying. So just put it in a fund and there's no time limit on when it's spent.
Okay.
Even better. Monthly reports.
As a request, the outreach coordinator for Right to Life Northeast Indiana, she requested the plaza, but it's during our
Farmers market.
farmer's market
Right.
time. So she would like to use the east side sidewalk of the courthouse on June 24th for Rally for Life. It'd be from 10 to 11, and she's expecting maybe 15 to 20 individuals, and they'll just, I don't know what they're gonna do actually, just, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Banner, whatever.
If there's not a conflict, I have no issue with that.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept that.
Seconded.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
3-0.
That is all I have.
Great, okay. So we can open up anything from the audience? None here? All right. Colin?
No.
Commissioner? Commissioner? Lisa? Holly? Reporting?